Desde abajo se defiende a todo mundo. Radio Jornalera, donde tu voz encuentra un eco amplificado, donde tus derechos salen a la luz y disipan el miedo, donde tus aportes a la sociedad se evidencian, donde se reconoce que tus luchas reivindican derechos para todas y todos. Radio Jornalera destaca a la gente humilde que pelea por sus derechos a pesar de sus circunstancias de despojo y marginación. Eleva a los individuos y sus luchas y muestra cómo la clase trabajadora y humilde puede ser agente de cambio cuando se organiza, cuando se defiende y cuando tiene una lectura correcta de su propia realidad. Radio Jornalera provee el espacio para aprender de los invitados e invitadas sobre sus vidas, lo que les motiva a seguir adelante, sus virtudes y desafíos y hasta su música y poesía favorita. Radio Jornalera recalca el trabajo de activistas, organizadores, educadores y algunas celebridades, sus causas, sus campañas, sus estrategias, sus tácticas y los reveses más duros en el perenne quehacer de formar líderes para hacer el mundo más justo, más humano, más inclusivo. Para cambiar el mundo, primero hay que conocer a las personas que sobreviven las injusticias y políticas públicas groseras. Hay que apoyar y solidarizarse con sus luchas, porque desde abajo se defiende a todo mundo. Radio Jornalera, donde los anhelos y el sentir del pueblo trabajador cobran vida.
My name is Archange Antoine, and welcome to the Archange Antoine Report. Today's show is centered on another inhumane killing at the U.S. Detention Center. Let's watch really quick.
According to ICE, the 41-year-old man from Haiti was arrested by ICE and taken here to Delaney Hall last week. A day later, he was dead. ICE just announcing the death on Thursday. This video showing an ambulance leaving Delaney Hall on December 11th, the day Jean Wilson Brutus was taken here in ICE custody, and the same day ICE says he experienced a medical emergency at the detention facility.
On December 11, Jean Brutus entered the detention center, and on December 12th, he was announced dead. This makes 33 people who have been kidnapped and lost their lives at a detention center in America. For those who love justice, who love freedom, and who care about Jean Brutus's family, community, and those who are suffering, let us have a moment of silence. Today, we're joined by Evans Baloney, who is a family member to Jean Brutus. Evans, you're here with us today. Introduce yourself, and more importantly, help us understand who was Jean.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Evans Bellany, and I am the cousin of Jean Wilson Brutus. To speak on Jean Wilson, we call him Winston for short because in the Haitian community, there's a lot of Jeans.
Yeah.
Well, we call him by his middle name, Wilson. So, Wilson was a gentle soul. For the moment any person to meet him, you could feel it. You could feel the gentleness that you have. He is someone that does not speak loudly or trying to stand out. He had a very calm presence, and that made people feel safe. And when Wilson around people, things get lighter. He was very selfless in everything he did. Wilson never thought about anything about himself. He always thought about other people first. If someone needed help, he did not hesitate to offer his help and offer his services. He did not ask any questions. He did not expect anything in return. And he helped people. He helped people because that was who he was. Um, Wilson showed his love through action. He was always ready to help with his hands. He's very tactile and very handy. Whether it was fixing something or carry something heavy or helping someone who was struggling to do something, he always stepped in without being asked. And his hands were his tools of kindness, and they work hard for people. Um, to know Wilson was to know about his quiet love. He did not need big words or a grand gesture. A simple act of help or a caring look or his presence was enough to show his quiet side of showing love. Um, and he showed love in many ways that were real and everlasting. Wilson life was not about success or the attention that he's receiving in the news. Currently, it was about his kindness, and it was about showing up for others, you know, like he did for our family. And he was living with us, so big help to the family. And I consider him more than a cousin. He's more a brother to me.
Wow.
And today we remember Wilson not for how he died, but how he lived. Again, remember him with his gentle soul. We will remember him of being very selfless or having a selfless heart. And we will remember him with the helping hands that was always there when someone needed him. And I believe all of these like characteristics and features that you have will have a like everlasting effects, not only for our family but like the Haitian diaspora or like the whole community, the immigrant community in general. um so made his stories lived on and changed lives and hopefully bring action and reform in this environment of inhumane acts against immigrants and asylum seekers.
Yeah. Evans, I just want to thank you so much for making time and sharing those words out of your heart about Wilson. I want to thank Mari and your whole family. We are standing with you. We are standing with your community. And just know that you will not be alone. And we will work our hardest to make sure that Wilson's name is not forgotten. So thank you again for joining us and appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for giving the platform to voice his character in a positive light.
Merci un peu.
Merci.
Folks, you heard it directly from the family. Jean, who they also call Wilson, a powerful soul, a beautiful person. Life was taken again in a detention center that has been centered on killing people. And for those of you who are watching this show, what is it going to take for us to be engaged in this process? What is it going to take for us to know that if we stay silent, this is going to come to our own house? What is it going to take for us to realize when one suffers, we all suffer? And to members of the Haitian community, we can't just keep talking about the revolution and how dope Haiti is and our culture and our history. But when somebody dies and gets killed, we go silent. Where are our voices when the demonstrations are happening? Where are we when there are mass protests? Where are we when people are lobbying in the State House in Washington, D.C.? Where are we in this political process? Chaque temps nous parle de révolution. We talk about May 18. We talk about Haitian Flag Day, but where are you? And this is going to be a challenge I'm going to push every single month for the rest of the year in 2026. We need more Haitian people engaged in the political process. And if you're not going to be standing for freedom and you're not going to be standing for liberation, then what is the point of doing this work? What is the point of saying that you're proud of being Haitian when your ancestors would have stood up and fought back? Today we have Charlene Walker, who is the director of Faith in New Jersey, with us today. And we have some other dope panelists. But Charlene, I want to talk to you as someone who's been doing this work on immigration and working closely within the Black community. One-on-one, how are you feeling about all of this, and what are your thoughts?
First, I am deeply saddened by the loss of Jean. But sadly, I can say we saw this coming. It was only a matter of time that we were going to lose one of our brothers or sisters in Delaney Hall, which was an illegal detention center. I am heartbroken that it takes a life to be taken for some electeds to even use their voice to fight back for something that we know is terribly wrong. And I am also saddened that this is when Black immigrants get to be seen in the immigration fight. All too often, immigration is painted as a Latino issue, and all other immigrants are erased. And that is by design. So I am saddened that this is the time that we can now see, but hope that this will be a launching pad for so many to come.
Charlene, you bring up a good point. When we are looking at the narratives, we see that they've been very intentional about making this narrative about Mexicans and those at the border. What we know is that the data said at one point, Haitians made up at one point the highest rate of people in the detention center in New Jersey. And so help me understand, why is it that we see, number one, the narrative doesn't always speak to Black bodies and souls who are in the detention center? And the second piece is, why, in your experience, why are Black immigrants not actively and engaged in the front line in some of the work that you're doing?
Well, I think, one, we need to understand that at the end of the day, Black people are always disproportionately impacted by any form of injustice. And what some of our leaders have said ever so nicely, when you get pulled over by the police because you are being profiled because you are Black, the next thing you have to worry about is, now I am Black and I have an accent. And then that funnels you into the detention system. That funnels you from the criminal legal system to the detention system to deportation. And Black immigrants are the most deported disproportionately of any other population, largely seeking asylum in the US. I think many times people are not engaged. Sometimes it's because their home countries have taught them that maybe if I keep my head down, maybe I will not be in the forefront, or people won't look at me. But the reality is that is exactly what white supremacy requires of us, is to be quiet so that they can round us up. And now I think people are learning that we need to fight back and not be scared and actually unite across our differences.
Fighting back is so key. And you were out there with Congresswoman LaMonica MacGyver, also with Congressman Robert Menendez Jr., and they have been fighting for years at the detention center. And we know that Congressman MacGyver was incarcerated just for using her privilege and her power as Congresswoman to evaluate the detention centers. What was that experience like today? And what steps do you think that people can be taking so that this doesn't happen again?
Well, today, what was great was the fact that they got to actually interview 20 people that were inside the detention center and heard firsthand about the horrible conditions, the lack of medical care, the inedible food, the fact that some people are even sitting in there and they have decided to self-deport, but they are still holding them because they can get paid off of their bodies still staying within the detention center. I think the next steps are the closure of Delaney Hall, and that is going to require Black immigrants, Latino immigrants, Black Americans all to come together to actually organize to make that happen. And one of the number one things in New Jersey is the passage of the Immigrant Trust Act, which honestly, when we think about Jean, probably would have kept him out of the detention center to begin with, because it ends all collaboration with ICE and local law enforcement.
So what we're saying is that when policy doesn't pass, ultimately people's lives are affected and it leads to more death. And so those who are responsible for the Immigration Trust Act, we need you to get up out your butt and pass the bill and move it along. So let's move forward. And Charlene, again, thank you again for this point, because we have to make sure that we understand that this is not just a Black immigration issue or immigration issue. This is deeply connected to incarceration of all bodies and exploitation of all people. And so I want to bring Pastor Erich, who is one of our powerful leader out in Trenton, New Jersey. Last night, Pastor Erich, not last night, but I think the other day, you had a massive action with other faith leaders. Number one, help us understand what was that action outside Delaney Hall about? And number two, why? Why should people of faith be doing any type of action outside of a detention center?
Well, thank you for having me onto the show, Archange. It's a pleasure to be here. That's first and foremost. But we had an action at Delaney Hall yesterday. It was yesterday around 11 o'clock. The initial reason for this action was to gather faith leaders to show the moral crisis of Delaney Hall, tripling their incarceration numbers at Delaney Hall. And that was the initial aspect. And while we were in the planning stages for this, we found out about the death of Jean. So that mobilized us a lot more as people of moral conviction and faith to stand in solidarity with those that are being separated and ripped apart from their families. And for the families that are left behind after the aftermath that are struggling just to get food to eat.
No, I was going to say you explicitly been one of the most vocal voices in the state of New Jersey talking about the conditions in prisons and detention centers and how it's a continuation of slavery. As a person of faith, why is that such a central point in your message?
It's a central point because we believe in a God of liberation, right? We also believe that everybody was created in God's image, in the divine image. Nobody is better or less than. We are all created by God, our creator, on equal footing. And when we invoke these policies that affect what, quote unquote, I'm going to quote Charlie Kirk, the undesirables, right? So you mass incarcerate the undesirables, whether it's the African-American community, the Latino community. And what I've learned when I went out to South Dakota, to Sioux Falls, to preach in their max security prison, the indigenous population, the original Americans that they've incarcerated in that prison that held 70% original folks. And the conditions behind these walls are probably some of the most atrocious that any human. It's so draconian that America has this view of punishing folks and just locking people up and throwing away the key. Just so the normal privileged folks can walk around their societies and push their little baby carriages and have a life without the other. And I think that's always been a direct goal of America. You know, you actually read the Constitution for what it is. You see they call Native Americans savages in this document. You see that they classified African Americans as 1/8 of a human or something like it. So America's already living up to its values, is what I'm trying to say on this. But it's up to us as people of faith and good conscience to recognize the common humanity in each other and welcoming all so that everybody can have a chance to just live and breathe.
My follow-up question to you, Pastor Erich. Jean, which his family calls him Wilson, died. Someone died today. And we have faith leaders who have been completely silent. And their silence is rooted in a theology that says we don't get involved in politics. What is your challenge to that?
Well, my challenge to that, I wouldn't say that's their theology. I believe what Dr. William Barber said, that they're actually living up to the slaveholders' religion. Right? When they brought slaves into this country and they started teaching with the Mexican folks south of the border, and they were doing stuff such as this, they actually redacted the scriptures to teach obedience to the society that was going on. But I do want to say this, as a person of faith, as a pastor in the community, and I want to speak to those pastors that are being ineffective like this, because one, and let's be honest, you're scared. They are scared. They don't know what to do. A lot of these pastors that we have today, especially in the mainline churches, went to prestigious institutions. And what I've learned, an institution does not change or save society. The people do, right? Number two, they're afraid they're going to lose their pension and their health care, lose their job. See, that's the difference between somebody who's called and ordained by God and somebody who just looks at this as a job. This is the calling upon your life. And if they want to talk scriptures, because they love redacting a lot of things, like my faith is Christianity, and it absolutely requires you to welcome the stranger or the immigrant. There's no exceptions to that, Archange. No, if they follow the law. No, if they contribute economically. No, just because they might look different. No, there's no exceptions. You must welcome them and treat them as a citizen. You love them. If you're a Christian and you believe that you have any type of reason to exclude or national interest to exclude or any other reason, you're going to have to decide what to do with the fact that the teachings of your religion conflict with whatever reasons you may hold on to. So how can those call themselves Christians if there's some biases out there? Because I've seen pastors all the time talk about legal and illegal. I've even seen that in my own denomination. But they have to decide who they serve. They have to decide where their loyalty is, if they worship God or the economy or whoever's holding the Oval Office at the time. Right? I will not name that name.
Pastor Erich, I mean, you bring up a good point. Thank you so much for that. And the reality is, we got some folks who are watching this show that maybe they don't even realize that they're practicing a version of slave religion. That
I open up to, I'll have Bible studies on Sunday mornings at 9:45. They're welcome to join me and they can learn.
That's a good plug. Go to his church. Where's your church located at, Pastor Erich?
1748 South Clinton Avenue in the great city of Trenton.
Amen.
Where all are welcome, all are included. Nobody will be turned away. And we do our best to keep our community safe, feeling loved, and feeling empowered.
Amen. Y'all better make sure y'all go visit his congregation. Dope pastor, standing with the people, and we'll make sure that liberation is at the center. Anna, you are here with us. You are the executive director of La Resistencia, which is the resistance in English. You run one of the most effective and most powerful rapid response teams. Help people understand what is your rapid response team, what is your theory of how you address ICE when they show up in a community, and what would a rapid response team could have done in the case of a Jean that's in the community that ICE is constantly picking up.
So thank you for having me on the show. I think this is a critical point in what we're talking and seeing now of people being detained and caged up. I would like to also say we're sending our condolences and our sincere love to all the family members who are affected by this and the community that's affected by this. Because as we respond rapidly in our teams, we see how families are separated. We see how families are torn apart. In deportations, We even see how our neighbors are no longer, working at the restaurant where they used to work because they've been snatched up by ICE and in detention centers and then later deported. So in our rapid response team here in New Jersey, we serve the Mercer County area, and in Trenton, Princeton, Lawrenceville, and the surrounding areas is where we've seen a lot of ICE activity. And of course, it's targeted toward the brown and Black community. In our trainings, what we hold, now we have about 100 plus rapid responders that come out and do the work of confronting ICE. And what we have been able to do multiple times is chase ICE out so that they're not roaming our streets. They're not going towards people of color. They're not racially profiling members of the community. But there are very, very specific times where I could tell you that we have saved families from being separated and torn apart because the community has come out. So we have allies, we have people who are not at risk, who are confronting ICE, of course. And then there's also the community who has come together to build a network of communication to know your rights.
And Anna, you have some people who are saying you run a good program, but it seems like you have to have like a degree, you have to be a policy expert, you have to know everything about immigration to get involved. Help people understand, what does it take to join a team that's pushing a protection for the citizens and people in the community through rapid response?
So yeah, this is I guess the rapid response teams really sound like it's something big that you cannot just get up and do, but in reality you can, right? We want everybody, if you are in a community where you know that you could be part of a rapid response team, you should be up and talking to your neighbors about how this works. This doesn't take much. There's a training where we can put roles to people, but in the long run, it's more about creating that community networking that we need, and also to create a safe space, because in reality, ICE usually comes in without a warrant, and they come in with no target to a person. So they're looking for any person who looks brown or Black and that could be incarcerated. So this is a urgent call for anywhere where you are at. If you have a community where you can get together with a group of people, and that's how we basically started. Then we've come out to different areas at the churches, at different groups that are pro-immigrant rights, with whatever it is that you can come together with. Right now is super urgent, especially in the year to come.
Anna, thank you so much for that. And for those who are watching, make sure you take hold to what she's saying. You don't have to be a part of an organization or part of a rapid response team. You can find ones that are active, but the most important thing that you can be doing is talking to your friends, talking to your neighbors, talking to your community, communicating, so that when ICE shows up, when they pick up people and they kidnap people, and they bring them to detention centers and they bring them to other countries. And we've seen that happening in El Salvador, putting them into detention centers and criminalizing them. When we say criminalize, what we're saying is that they are making you a criminal against your own will. You can take a piece of candy and people will make you seem like you should have the death penalty and that you're a criminal. And this is a big apparatus to criminalize all people so they can continue to exploit us. With the couple of minutes that we have, let's do some rapid response questions. Charlene, we are proud to be in New Jersey. We claim to be powerful New Jersey folks. We go around the country talking how great we are. How are you feeling about our politics and our politicians and our elected officials as it relates to immigration? Are they stepping up or are they slacking off?
I would say the majority of our legislators have no spine. and are not stepping up. We only have some greats, Congresswoman McIver, Bonnie Watson Coleman, Congresswoman and Congressman Menendez, but our local state electeds have largely failed us, and they know what to do. They're just choosing not to because there's not enough pressure from the community.
And so we talk about this pressure for the community. Erich, where can some of the faith leaders, why are the faith leaders not putting this pressure? We have plenty of denominations across the board, Black denominations, white denomination, Latino denomination, multi-faith, liberal, conservative, moderate, non-denominational. Like, why are they not putting the pressure with as being one of the most organized institutions?
That's a big question. I don't know if we have the time for me to answer that, but I'm going to give you the short one, brother. Power, relevancy, and spectacle. That's the three-headed demons that a lot of these churches deal with. They like to feel important. They like to feel worshipped. And they like to drive fancy cars, if you want me to be honest. Right? Number two, people fear, especially in the main lines, that separation of church and state. Those of, through the errors of the coming over here and the Reformation and all that, there's a fear of the church gaining too much power or religion gaining too much power. So there's a separation law. So a lot of people fear crossing that wall. A lot of clergy or a lot of churches, I'm going to pick on the churches, are very pastor-centric, right? Where they're not communal, where they feel like they're the end-all with all, and they don't really develop the skills to listen to the needs of their community and the plight of their neighbors. And I think that's why they don't get involved. I could tell you the reason why I get involved: lived experience. I have a lot of friends from all different ethnicities and races. I've seen the horrors and struggles of those being persecuted. It's a lived experience. So that gives me the drive and need to do what I do, that mobilizes my congregation to do what needs to be done.
Yeah. And Anna, Erich just laid out the case. You're organizing in Mercer County. You're organizing in sort of like the region outside of Pastor Erich. Do you find yourself supported by the faith community? Do you find yourself supported by faith leaders?
Well, it depends, right, where you go in the state. And I think we have to do a better job of responding as a community and in conjunction with the churches around us. Right now in Trenton, we have a big support with St. Bart's Church, but at the same time in Princeton, where we launched our rapid response team as well, we have to get many of the churches involved. So I would urge anyone to, if they're wanting to be part of the church, of the rapid response team, to go with the church, because I think those two go hand in hand. We're a community, and faith will move us.
How many churches did you mention in this conversation?
One.
Wow. I mean, this seriously, like, we're saying that we have people of faith being killed, tormented, terrorized, and abducted by our state. Where are they? And if you can only mention one congregation, kudos to a Pastor Erich, kudos to a St. Bart. The reality is, where is everybody else, Charlene?
Well, we organize congregations. And what I will say is that it takes development of a congregation. So what we do is we help congregations to set up teams, and we help to develop the faith leader themselves so they learn how to speak out, especially when they're from a denomination that might tell them it's easier to be quiet. So I believe that in order for people to step out, that they really do need to join organizations like Faith in New Jersey that can help to support them, because they want to, but a lot of them really are sitting back going, well, where do I begin? And that is where organizing organizations come in.
That is a good point, Charlene, that people need to get involved. We know that you've been creating these spaces for people to get trained and develop. But as someone who comes from the Haitian community, who sees some of these pastors were supporting Trump. Can we have a real conversation about how many Latino pastors and Black pastors and Caribbean pastors and African pastors? And we're not even talking about white pastors, because majority of them were Trump supporters. But let's talk about that. We offer these spaces, we create these trainings, but then we have secret pulpit Trump MAGA ICE supporters that are masking lack of support in this whole notion that they don't get involved in politics. Pastor Erich, then we switch it up to Charlene, and then
I'm going to
Anna.
answer a couple of those questions that you've been asked.
All right, Brent, come on.
I'm reflecting because we're in the Advent season, right? New beginnings, new birth, new coming. The Christ child is coming to us. So I reflect on Mary's words in the Magnificat. He has cast down the mighty from their thrones, and he has lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things, and the rich he has sent away empty. I'm going to tell you that doesn't just apply to politicians. It applies to these people that are holding up space in these pulpits. Right? If they are not living the gospel and living out the teachings of Christ, and whom do they really serve? These are questions we all have to ask ourselves, especially in this era of ICE. Now, as you all know, and I'm very vocal about this, I do come from the Lutheran tradition. Lutherans got a lot of bad stuff in their past, but I highlight Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was amazing. He spoke out against the national church, and that's something that we must do too. When politics weds with faith, it's ugly. It's disformed. It's disfigured. It's not nice. Where they're trying to put their agendas on, and not the agendas what God wants. What would that be? People are like, okay, Pastor, what does God want? God wants you to love God, and God wants you to love your neighbor as yourself. And guess what? That's it. What does it mean to love your neighbor? It means you want to make sure they eat. You want to make sure they have the roof over their head. They have clothes, that their children are taken care of. These are basic principles of humanity that seem to have been lost by these so-called Christians. How can they call themselves Christians if they don't have Christ? That's all.
I mean, Erich, I think people like you have always been in existence. They were called the abolitionists. But the reality is the vast majority of Christians in America were not abolitionists. And we have to address something that has been happening in our community, in our neighbor, in our society for a very long time, which is God, the gospel, Christ second, first, economics, and their own political agendas. And for me, I mean, you bring up a good point, but I think there's something deeper there that we have to continue pointing our finger at. Charlene.
I want to say white Christian nationalism does not just have white face, and it is taking over a ton of congregations that's telling people how they should act. But what I think needs to actually happen is, take it this way, right? We don't sit at tables that serve us poison food. As people that go to churches, that go to masjids, we should not be walking into one that is going to serve us something that is poison. We have a responsibility to call out each other, to call out places of faith, to call out faith leaders and tell them that they have to do better, because they have a responsibility to not be chaplains to the empire that is killing us, quite literally, but to actually be the prophets of the resistance that stand with the people, just like Jesus did when he was flipping tables and saying that we need something better.
And Charlene, you're making a solid point about us needing to call out these clergy leaders in these institutions who are selling out God's people. But at the same time, are we prepared for the backlash? There's always a backlash when you start hitting these dudes' egos. And so how are we preparing people for that backlash, even though it's a righteous backlash?
I think that thing we need to think about is that power is in relationship, right? That means you need to find the relationships that are going to have your back. And it's not just your fellow clergy. It will be people within your community. We have a responsibility to walk with the least of these, right? And the least of these will stand with us. They're just waiting for somebody to step out and to be bold enough to do something. I recently saw, not too long ago, the city of Patterson. I was so proud of them, where they stood up in a city council meeting and called out the faith leaders for being chaplains to the empire. And there was a counter group of faith leaders that stood up and said otherwise, and the people are walking with them instead.
Amen. Anna, what is your message to Latino pastors, Latino evangelical pastors, because the majority of your base are members of the Latino community?
Right. Yeah. And I was actually going to mention before I say my message to the pastors and the churches who serve Latino community. We've actually had many families come to us and tell us that they go to church, and then when their loved one is detained and they need a letter or they need some type of sponsorship, the churches say, no, you haven't registered, or they'll give excuses like, we don't know you. How can we say who you are? And so that makes me very, one, saddened and two, furious, right? Because how are we saying that we're faithful and that we want humanity and that God is supposed to be in each of one of us, and then we're not helping each other? So that's come out a lot during our community support part of the work that is rapid response as well. And so I want to just make sure that all of the congregations, all of the churches, all of the Catholic churches, majority that are in the Mercer County area, are helping our families in any way possible. Once they're detained, it's super, super difficult to have them released. There's no bonds, there's no habeas corpus, there's no type of legal protection that we could do so that they stay here. Mm-hmm. Usually they're deported within like 4 to 7 weeks. And that's very sad.
I want to thank Pastor Erich, Anna Paola, Charlene Walker for joining us in this important show. More importantly, we want to thank the Brutus family. We want to thank Wilson's community, Jean's family members and friends who are hurting deeply today. This conversation must continue to happen. This is not a beating down of faith or religion. This is a challenging of faith and religion. This is a pushing and a loving that we cannot do this alone, that we need each other. And if you're watching this, whether you're Black, white, Latino, Asian, or different, we need you at the forefront. And to the Haitian community, you can't keep talking about how powerful our ancestors were, how they fought for our freedoms, how they revolted and had a successful revolution, and you are sitting behind your computer, not even posting a message about what's happening in this country today. You're not even standing up. You're not even speaking out, let alone participating in anything happening. And for those of you who want to talk gangster has to start in what you say, in what you do, and how you live. And we need more people joining Pastor Erich, Anna Paola, Charlene Walker, and other activists and organizers around New Jersey and beyond, because fascism is coming for everybody. God bless you, and thank you for joining Archange Antoine's report. Thank you.
Audio Jungle.